Hi, my name is Matthew Guidry. The topic I've chosen is suicide awareness and prevention in teenagers. I'm 18 years old, and I feel as if this topic is something that is not voiced a lot as teenagers or talked to about. Suicide is a hard topic to talk about. I've jotted down some notes to keep myself on track. So if you see me looking over that's what I'm doing. I tend to ramble a lot. Suicide is a hard topic to talk about, and a lot of people, I'll touch on this later, but a lot of people think that if you ignore it, that's the correct way to go about it, which seems interesting to me. It's the only kind of problem that seems to be thought about that way, but I'll touch on that more later. Studman's Medical Dictionary has defined suicide as intentionally causing one's death. I think it's good to have that definition as we talk about it. And adults deal with thoughts of suicide as well. I don't want to devalue these tendencies that can carry on into adulthood or even start at adulthood, but this paper will specifically be focusing on teenagers and teenagers to young adults. The CDC stated in 2020 an estimated 12.2 million American adults seriously thought about suicide. 3.2 million planned a suicide attempt, and 1.2 million attempted suicide. Suicide and mental health are not as black and white as it may seem. It's not one solution to every problem. And what I mean by that is a lot of the time we can look for in life a way to, okay, what's my immediate fix? And it can be due to procrastination or any number of reasons, but we tend to look for how can I just solve this problem? What's the magic words I can say? What's the magic thing I can do to eliminate this problem? Unfortunately, most of life does not work like that, and mental health and suicide are a topic that on this underneath the surface it gets very complex. But I want to talk about some of the general causes and some of the general preventions that have proven to work. Possible causes. I've got a quote here from Christina M. Camerata, I believe is how you say it. Most teens interviewed after making a suicide attempt say that they did it because they were trying to escape from a situation that seemed impossible to deal with or to get relief from really bad thoughts or feelings. They didn't really want to die as much as they wanted to escape from what was going on. And at that particular moment, dying seemed like the only way out. This quote is very heartbreaking to me that mostly you're dealing with teenagers that don't want to die. They don't want their time to be ended, but it's the result of not feeling as if there is an escape from the situations that they deal with. Now, there's number of causes that could come from as well, whether it be adult figures that do not give teenagers the opportunity to voice their opinions or belittle them or anything. There's a million reasons that could be, but as we go on into the causes, I just want that to be known. Now, the first cause I'm going to talk about is depression or major depressive disorder. I understand that depression is kind of a broad topic, which is why I chose to put it first in this presentation and in my paper. Depression, I feel like, is the root of a lot of the problems or causes for suicidal tendencies, just that it is the beginning of those thoughts. Symptoms for depression can look like insomnia. So if somebody's obviously not sleeping a lot, low appetite, somebody's not eating a lot, or low self-esteem. This can start as teenagers and move into adulthood. But generally, if you notice somebody tends to not joke on themselves, but tends to genuinely think little of themselves, that can be a sign of depression. Suicide happens when these thoughts or symptoms become too powerful, and in the same way that we just read that quote, there feels like there's no other option than suicide. Depression itself has multiple causes. As I was saying, it's kind of a rabbit hole when you start getting down into it. that depression itself is kind of the broad cause that it's kind of a catch-all term. Depression itself has multiple causes like grief, loss of a loved one, or major life events, depending on the decisions that were made or the stress that you might experience having to make those decisions. And the one that I want to touch on further would be abuse, specifically child abuse and neglect. Now, I've got statistics from the Child Protective Services. I know it's a little outdated, 2016, but it's has not changed, or the number has gotten bigger, unfortunately. In 2016, 676,000 children in the U.S. were confirmed victims of abuse and neglect. 3.5 were referred for potential maltreatment. Now, that's a small number in comparison of what's actually confirmed, but the fact that the larger number, 3.5 million, is still there, there's some sort of maltreatment that is going on in those children's lives. Some things that can cause, the main thing, I think, as someone who personally knows child abuse victims, is that it makes you feel less important as a person. As a kid, it leads you to thoughts of, why would this person do this to me? Especially if it is a parent, you think, okay, and why is this person that's supposed to be a caretaker or protector for me doesn't value me enough to protect me, and it leads to abuse, or these thoughts can tend to transfer to adulthood. Same thing of adults that have low self-esteem. The way that you're raised tends to affect a lot of your personality or your life going forward, and victims of child abuse can carry that mindset out throughout the rest of their lives. Um, next, next topic, or possible cause I want to talk about would be societal pressures. I feel like this is one that is not really touched on that much nowadays, especially um, certain aspects of it. What I mean by societal pressures is just stress on teenagers and expectations for them. Um, Now I'm 18 years old, as I've said, so I'm still a teenager and going into young adulthood. And I'm not one to specifically, um, I guess, try to take advantage of my situations and say, oh, I've got this so hard. Um, I wish this was easier. I wish this was more fair. Stuff like that. I just understand that everybody has their fair share of hardships as they grow up and throughout their lives. But there is some untalked about stresses that can cause these tendencies. First, academic stresses, and what I mean by that would just be the going into high school, having a lot of work to do, a lot of stress to succeed, especially if your family has already graduated or you have siblings that are star students or anything like that. There can be pressure on teenagers in that aspect. Peer pressure would just be friends at this age. There's a lot of um, there's a lot of trying to figure out who you are and trying to fit in. Um, we tend to adjust ourselves based off our surroundings, and really let that pressure affect us negatively, as well as romantic pressure. This is kind of falls in the same line of peer pressure, just only for somebody that you might have interest in. I know multiple people that have had very long relationships at a young age, only for them to break it off after 5 to 7 years, and that can cause the same feeling of unworthiness of um, that I had talked about previously, and can lead to this bigger problem of depression or suicidal tendencies. So that was some of the possible causes. I want to talk about the integration plan This would just be concepts that have proven to help people dealing with previously mentioned problems. And I feel as if these concepts are a little obvious, but need to be harped on. First, I would say is ask. Um, Most think that you should not talk about suicide, which is completely backwards. I know that we kind of have this tendency to ball up and not talk about how we feel or not talk to others about what may be going on. Um, but even as the third party, most people think that you should not talk to somebody about suicide if they're dealing with those problems. That is just not the case. Loneliness is a big factor to suicide. And when you don't talk to somebody about their problems or they feel like they have nobody to go to, that can lead to said loneliness. I think something that we need to put into plan is normalize talking about these issues. Next would be an aspect of asking, which would be to listen. It is possible to overstep boundaries and ask too much, um, but just understand that you're not trying to get a point across when you're dealing with somebody that has these problems. You're trying to uncover what may be the root of these problems. So, although you may want to know the answer to this question, you may want to know the answer to this question. Ask questions intentionally that provoke response out of them that can actually lead you to information that you need to know. So ask, but listen intentionally and try to understand what they may be going through. Therapy or counseling, I feel like is another obvious one, but tend to be avoided. The couple I wrote down, attachment-based family therapy. The definition from Newport Academy is as follows. Attachment-based family therapy, or ABFT, is specifically designed to address depression and the risk of teen suicide. By repairing ruptured relationships between parents and teens, as a result, young people feel safe enough to turn to their parents for support when they are experiencing suicidal thoughts. Another one I wrote down would be cognitive behavioral therapy, which we talked about this week, which brings clarity to what a young person is thinking and feeling. It allows you to understand what you might be dealing with or understand the behavior, where your behavior is coming from. I'll go ahead and wrap up because I'm already over time. Thoughts in conclusion: helping somebody that deals with any problem, but dealing with a problem like this takes initiative. You can't expect just to ask one time or know that they're dealing with it and maybe just hope that it helps. Um, it's not easy to help somebody with this, especially if it's somebody you're close to. It may be hard to realize that somebody deals with this problem, but it is infinitely worth it. It's infinitely worth helping somebody through this and trying to understand them. There's what's a little bit of discomfort for yourself at the cost of saving somebody's life is the way that I see it. Suicide is not black and white, and to deal with it effectively, you have to understand that. You can't go in expecting to have one answer to every problem or have a fix right away. It's not as black. It's not black and white like that. Um, I'll go ahead and leave off with a Bible verse that I feel relates to this. Romans 8:38 and 39 says, "For I am convinced that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing will be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord." Um, what I wrote down, no matter the struggle that a young person might be dealing with, is never enough to separate us from the love of God. This is the difference that I feel like is very important for Christian counselors, is that we can always lead it back to the cross. Many try to find this love that Christ offers in others, and it will always fall short. Jesus Christ is the ultimate counselor and should be our ultimate guideline, our ultimate influence or person to look to as to how to conduct ourselves in counseling. Um, I'm all out of notes. I really appreciate. I just want to take a second to say I really appreciate this class, and I appreciate this opportunity. And thank you for um for this for what we've learned so far, and I'm excited as we go forward towards the end of our our semester. So thank you.